A little bit of you makes me your man. Mambo number 5. A little bit of Monica in my life, a little bit of Erica by my side, a little bit of Rita's all I need, a little bit of Tina's what I see, a little bit of Sandra in the sun, a little bit of Mary all night long, a little bit of Jessica, here I am, a little bit of you makes me your man. I do all to fall in love with a girl like you. 'Cause you can't run, you can't hide. You and me gonna touch the sky. Mambo number 5.
Name that moan. Good morning, everybody. Welcome in to the show. Hey, how y'all doing? Did you guys name that moan? Mimi says it's definitely a whale moan. We shall see momentarily, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, maybe happy middle of the night, depending on where you are, since obviously I know exactly where APAC time zones fall, because this may not actually be as APAC friendly as I thought. Good morning. Welcome into the show. This is Talking Trek Live, Star Trek Fleet Command's official podcast, and ever branching out into the world of the Star Trek universe. We're very, very excited about some of the stuff that we got to share with you guys today, and welcome you guys into the show. Let's hit it, as we always do, with a Talking Trek server sound off. Tagora kicking us off on server 40, Noon Whistle on 29. Thank you, Jace, on 44. Commander Soto. Do I sound splatty?
Yes.
I sound a little splatty, I think. I'm going to fix that a little bit. All right, is that a little bit better? That might sound a little bit better. Yeah, there we go. Commander Soto on 167 and Dominus Prime on 53. Bad Boy on 13. Paulo on 34. Thank you, Fire Force Server 26 in the house. What's Gup? What's Gup? What's a guppy? Gup. That's me. Counselor Half on Server 20. Thank you. Dr. Juby says, oh my God, a podcast during nap time. Sorry. Sandra on European 142. Thank you. Spectre on server 11. Penfold on 137. Tycon on 33. Mid Strangler on server 9. What's going on? Bender the Robot on 51. Nigel on 155. Taffman says, is Bubba back in the game? No. Justin on 84. 7 of 7 on 137. Silvertab on 40. Naz on 74. Balabom on 17. Odysseus on server 11. Wilson on 36. Crispy Pete on 139. Helgare Troti. On server 0. Thank you. McSurgeon on server 20. Longton on server 55. That is. JP on 158. Combat Kill says, yo, DJ Early Bird. Yeah, I know. My brain is hurting this early. Good morning to you, one and all. My name is Ultimate DJz. Welcome in to Talking Trek Live, Star Trek Fleet Command's official podcast, and welcoming all of you guys into a very special show. As a matter of fact, as you saw in the title, it is, ladies and gentlemen, quite official. If you would direct your attention at the screen, I would now gladly like to welcome my dear friend and brother from another mother, Bubba Joe, is on the stage. No. Wrong button.
Oh, you weren't going to let me talk? What is this?
I hit the wrong button. Shocking. Spectre, thank you for the big old stinky resub there. Thank you, guys. What's going on? Lost in 100 bits. Lieutenant Bennett, 100 bits. Silvertab with the 10-month resub. Oh, my dog, he says.
Good morning to Chloe P.
Good morning, Chloe P. Nigel says, how did I get Bubba to wake up so early? Dude, he woke me up early.
Bubba gets up early. That's the reason Bubba goes to bed early. That's how that works.
Now, Spectre, 23-month anniversary. Thank you, Captain Planets. Bender with the resub. Mosher with the resub. Thank you, guys. Chris, son of Mac, with the resub. Thank you, guys, also very, very much. Cyclone with the resub. Appreciate you guys all being here.
We got a lot of people in the chat that obviously were not around yesterday.
Yes, a lot of people. Yeah, so we did a little bit of a gaming stream yesterday, and got to hang out for a little bit, a couple of hours with the community. Hellside says, "Good to see you, Bubba. How you been?" Listen, we're going to get to all the Bubba questions coming up here in just a few moments. B Smith says, "Missed you, Bubba." Louis P says, "Your Seahawks better win today." I agree. They
better win today.
They better win today.
I got the hat, so we're solid.
Yeah, he's ready to go. He's got the Seahawks hat. Tuckle says, "Is Bubba back?" B Smith says, "Missed you, Bubba."
Before we get to the Bubba questions, we do have something really important to do, right?
Do we?
I mean, I think we do. It's why we delayed the show.
Oh, yeah, I wrote news. Yeah, we have news. Ladies and gentlemen, today with the assistance of Bubba Joe in the writer's room, Cruzado says, "Wait, you streamed yesterday?" Yep, busted that streak, didn't I? No, we streamed yesterday for like 4.5 hours.
Yes.
We were here for a long time.
DJ loved the game we played. Absolutely adored it. Was so happy with his $5 purchase.
That was a maddening game yesterday. I was so furious about that. And by the way, I didn't, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, it is on Twitch playback and it's uploading to VOD on YouTube. Now, the game we played was Biohazard, an escape room called Biohazard.
Yep.
And I was furious with it. I enjoyed playing the game while it lasted.
Yeah.
But I was furious with the game by the time we ended.
You didn't like the ending. You liked everything until the end.
The end was terrible, Hellside.
It was fine.
The ending was horrible.
It's
As a matter of
fine.
fact, so I was so traumatized by this that after the show was over, I went into the house, and I've got the boys here, and they've had a couple of friends over. We were sitting down and having dinner together,
Yep.
and I was explaining this game, and none of them could believe it. Like, they were all in my camp. They were all on my side. That was an absolutely crappy, terrible ending to a game. I want my damn $5 back.
Everyone but me.
He thought it was fine, which gives you only the reassurance, community, that the yin and the yang have never left, okay?
I am so positive. I'm full of positive energy.
All the positive energy
Check
right there.
everything that I like, he hates, and everything that he likes, I hate. It's just that's just the way it's always been. And this game yesterday absolutely just drove me bananas. I was so mad at it. And I couldn't stop talking about it for like an hour.
You went on and on and on about it.
I ranted about it.
It bled into our other games that night, for sure.
Yes, it did. So we played last night. Like I mentioned, we had my boys came home and they brought a couple of friends. So we actually had a living room full of testosterone last night. The male genitalia jokes were just quite
endless,
quantifiably large. So Bubba and I
impressively large.
Bubba and I are there, and there's Oliver's there, which is terrible. I'm a bad dad.
Yes.
And 5 teenage boys all making penis jokes. And it was absolutely terrible. But we played some Jackbox last night, and even my traumatized reaction to this Biohazard game made it into the answers of Quiplash last night. It was terrible.
That's a big one right there. That's impressively large.
Yep. That happened last night. So, Hellsite, that's just it. It's an escape room game. So what's the end? Walking out the door. That should have been the win, right? We escaped. We solved the puzzle. We saved the world.
Well, we solved the puzzle, and we saved the world through our sacrifice.
What? No.
I personally love the D.
Thank you. Yeah. No one will ever discover the research that we uncovered. No one will ever find the evidence that we found. No one will ever hold that corporation accountable. They know I'm on the air, and they just keep calling. This is the 3rd time he's called. Anywho. All right.
We need to make sure that no one has lost an arm.
No, nobody's lost an arm. Nobody's lost an arm. He's looking for an Allen wrench set.
Oh, okay.
Which means they're constructing something.
Yes.
which means someone
Or
might lose
destructing something.
Someone might lose an arm. All right. So anyway, there was that. That was on yesterday's stream. It's uploading to YouTube now, and it's available on Twitch VOD if you guys would like to go check that out. That was yesterday's big reveal that Bubba Joe is here.
I am
on
here.
the mountain.
I am on Mount DJ.
He is on the mountain. And he showed up here, and this is a secret that we've actually kept quiet for a little while. So this is something that we're going to talk to you a little bit more about coming up right on the other side of this particular feature. And yes, I find it equally as odd, community, that Bubba Joe is actually asking for the stupid news. But who am I to fail my partner in not providing yet another quality series of stupid news? So ladies and gentlemen, live from all across the world, we're going to check in with the Talking Trek News Studios and find out what the headlines are from all across this beautiful globe. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the stupid news.
Stupid news.
It's time for the news. No, Theo. He ascended Mount. The name of the mountain. The name of the mountain is indeed Mount DJ. So he ascended Mount DJ, did not actually perform the action of mounting.
You know that's not a lot better.
And that's all the time we have for today. That's all the time we got for today.
It does not matter how much you try to clean that up.
Nope, it's not going to work. All right, let's see. What do we have in here? I was looking for... I just realized I messed something up. There we go. All right, we're ready.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, checking. Yeah, Lost It says, here's a larger shovel. You should be fine with that. A passenger on a plane at a Florida airport this past week captured video of the moment a large alligator wandered amongst the planes on the tarmac. Like there was this gator that was just moving around the airport, around all the planes, making him literally quite literally the most dangerous creature at an airport since Spirit Airlines pilot. So, yeah. An animal rights group has asked a Colorado court to decide whether...
You sure you want to do this one here?
I laughed out loud on this one.
I don't know that this one...
This is great.
This is going to get you in trouble.
An animal rights group has asked a Colorado court to decide whether 5 elephants that have lived at the same zoo for decades are actually considered persons under the law. But of course, elephants are, in fact, considered people. How else do you explain the cast of The View?
That one may get you in trouble.
I'm kidding. Obviously, I love The View, or I wouldn't make fun of them. Just like I love Spirit.
No, you don't.
Yeah, a Michigan man. A Michigan man recently scored $148,000 from the Michigan lottery after previously winning another $29,000 from the same game back in 2015, which means he's hopefully won enough money to finally leave the state of Michigan.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe possibly. I don't know. Listen, obviously the guy won a healthy chunk of cash and did exactly the right thing.
Yep.
He continued to gamble.
Of course,
right.
yes.
Exactly.
That's what you do when you win money.
Yeah. An Alabama couple's home security camera captured the moment that a bear stood up on its hind legs to roll their trash can off their property. At first, they were kind of scared. Then the husband kind of turned around and was like a little bit happy that someone else took out the trash for a change. He was pretty thrilled with that. Yep. All right.
I think you should have ended on The View. That was clearly the apex of the jokes today.
Wait, what?
That was the apex.
That was good.
Well, until we get to my jokes.
The gambling one was also great. Fine. You want? All right. You
Let's
think
go.
you can do better,
I
ladies
think I
and
can do
gentlemen?
better.
Let's check in with Bubba Joe at the sports desk. Huh? Shiny says, able to see Bubba Joe's dead stare while you read your stupid news is just priceless. Were you not entertained?
I mean, it's stupid news. What do you want from me?
All right, fine. I'm going to do the same thing to you.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's check in with Bubba Joe at the sports. Thank you. Let's check in with Bubba Joe over at the Sports Desk. Bubba, what's going on in the world of sports?
All right. Los Angeles descended into chaos as belligerent baseball fans, I think that's just baseball fans, but belligerent baseball fans set a bus on fire while others clashed with cops and looters, ran amok following the Dodgers World Series victory. Or as LA law enforcement officials called it, a tame night. All right. We got a little world sports news here.
World sports.
Chinese scientists recently unveiled an innovative brick type that they hope will be used to build the world's first base and inhabitable houses on the surface of the moon. That would be really cool, right? Don't you want to have a house on the moon?
What?
Don't you want to have a house on the moon?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. This is wild because the Chinese are somehow throwing up more bricks than Bronny James. But we got one more. If we gave you two stories, that would be good enough. But we're going to give you one more.
Really good.
All right.
All right. Oh, you got another.
I got one
All right.
more.
One more.
Yankees pitcher Garrett Cole said the team's meltdown in Game 5 of the World Series is as bad as it gets. But New York fans disagree because the Mets and the Knicks and the Jets and the Giants all play in the city too.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's your sports news. There you go. All right, so who wins? I think I won. I don't know. Those are pretty good.
This is pretty good.
This is pretty good sports jokes. I hate. You know what? That's one thing I don't miss. I don't miss that. I don't like Bubba Joe coming in and showing me up on my own feature. Bubba wins. The chat says Bubba. Ooh, Dragon Keeper gave us a tie. Look at that. Thanks, Trash Keeper. Appreciate you, man. Love you. Putt says Bubba wins. Cruzito says View for the win, though. That was a good joke.
I thought that joke could get you in trouble, so that's how you know it's good. It's right
whoopee.
on the edge.
I love
That's how
whoopee.
you know you can get in a little trouble.
Albus says, come back to STFC, Bubba Joe. We miss you desperately. Listen, I do want to say this very quickly before I get too far in. Just as a quick reminder, as we talk about at the beginning of every show, towards the middle somewhere, maybe at the end, we are in the Talking Trek season of giving, all right, which is the Christmas Angel Fund 2024, looking to make it as big as it's ever been. The goal is $60,000. And this is all going to benefit the Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt Medical in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, you can donate in several different ways. You've got exclamation point tip. You've got exclamation point donate, where Talking Trek will pay all of the fees, and it'll pop up right here on stream. But we also have this QR code right over here, Bubba, and this is good all the time. People can use it anytime, and it's also a tax-deductible portal. It's directly to the hospital, so it doesn't come through here. You know that your donation is going directly to the hospital with no middleman, no one else touching it, not me, not PayPal, nothing like that. Wait, what's wrong with it? It does say $0. I think I messed that up. That was because I did that.
Everything for November.
Reset everything. Dang on, I'll fix it. Give me a second. Yeah, I know what I did there. That's my fault. I'll fix it. Stand by. Uno momento, por favor. That was because, daggone it, widget data. It's supposed to go over here. Sorry, I messed that up. Total, where does it go? Tips right there. So it would be $7,287. $7,287. What is happening? Okay, there we go. $7,280.
Turn off the numpad lock.
Stop it.
It stops typing in numbers.
Stop. There it goes. All right, it's fixed. Sorry about that. Yeah, I did that because I crossed over the month and I had to reset the thing. Sorry. Okay, anyway, it's fixed. It's fine. There you go. However, what I wanted to point out, sorry for that, I wanted to point out that we got one that came in after the last show. After we went off last night, somebody came in and donated to the Christmas Angel Fund.
They're in the chat.
They are in the chat, which is
I think
absolutely... I did not foobar anything, but they did give in the chat, and I was actually telling Bubba that this one touches my heart really in particular because everybody who gives is doing something amazing.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if it's $1, doesn't matter if it's $5, doesn't matter if it's $100, $500, $1,000. Like, you should feel warmth in your heart because you're doing the right thing. And this one I felt just touched me in particular. First of all, Albus is a relatively new member of the community. He's come in for a little while and been very active, and I hope that you're finding a new home here. But he came in yesterday and dropped $5 into the chat. $3.50. It was actually $3.50 pounds.
Yes.
Which converted to almost $5. And he wrote, "Here to help," and send a small donation to do my part, because that's all that anybody can ask to anybody, is just to do what they can. And this one, I don't know, man. For some reason, Albus, this one really touched my heart. Thank you for being a new member to our community. Thank you for giving to the children. I really appreciate it. I see you in the chat. You are a hero. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you. Very, very kind of you. Wicked says, your joke was insulting to elephants. They're quite smart animals. Listen, like I said, it was a great joke. It was a
Dr. Juby, though. Dr. Juby is in prime form.
Oh, no. What's Dr. Juby doing?
The real winner was the fans who had us on mute. Do we have a symbol? Ba-dum-bum?
Oh, yeah, I got one here.
There we go.
Thanks a lot, Juby.
Thank you, Dr.
Appreciate
Juby. Missed you too.
Yeah. So anyway, yes, what you guys see here is the ghost of Bubba Joe on the stage.
Because I drove off the side of the mountain last night.
No. Sir Tail says, how about those who showed up late? Then you'll just have to go back and listen. All right, just have to go back and check it out. But I will say it has been an absolute pleasure having him here on the mountain, having him in my home for the last couple of days. It's been really, really nice. This is your first time out here. We've met at other cities. We've gone to L.A. together and so forth, but this is your first time coming into my home. And it was absolutely amazing and wonderful to have you here. We had a great dinner last night with the family. All the boys sat down, and again, just in a house full of teenage boys. Does this remind you of anything like that? Nothing like that. I
was never like this.
You never experienced anything like this. Listen, any of those of you who have experience raising teenage boys, you know it's a special time. Dinner time is a special time. And that's just when everyone works on crafting their jokes.
Yes. And inhaling food at like light speed.
Dude, how much food did we cook?
So much food. You made
when I set out all the food, he was like, "My God, you don't need to cook all that." I'm like, "Oh, dude, you don't know."
So it was like 4 steaks, 4 pork chops.
Big pork chops.
Big pork chops. A massive amount of shrimp and scallops. And then like
3 pounds.
3 pounds of shrimp and scallops.
Shrimp and scallops, 3 pounds.
The salmon. There's how many salmon patties? There were like a dozen?
12. 12 salmon fillets that were each, I think, 6 ounces or 8 ounces.
Something like that. They were different sizes. I don't know if they really measured them that closely.
But yeah, so all those. Then 5 cups of rice.
Yep.
I feel like I'm forgetting something.
The 24-pack of soda they demolished.
The 24-pack of soda and the kielbasa sausages.
The sausage was really good.
Yeah, 8 of those. All right, they weren't salmon patties. They were fillets. They were cut fillets, and I just baked them. But so that is all I did. And honestly, it was probably between 10 and 12 pounds of food. If I had to guess, it was probably about 12 pounds of food. I was able to fit all the leftovers into 2 small Tupperwares.
Yep, yes.
2 small Tupperwares that are currently in the fridge that I will now have to protect with my life because that will be my lunch for work this week. But no, it was great, kind of having the family back together and having Bubba in the house to experience that with me and just and be my friend and to show up. And so this is something that we've kept a secret for a very long time. This has been planned for a minute.
Yep.
But you guys, those of you who are familiar or know what happened in Nashville, know that the plan was always to reunite and kind of do something because, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, you're not actually returning to Star Trek Fleet Command. You're not coming back into the game.
No.
But we had...
I mean, there are terms. I have terms out that I've put up in your chat that
are still there.
They're
Same
still
terms.
there. Yes.
Just need to make sure that Beck becomes supreme ruler of all things Scopely.
Yes.
When
that happens.
That being said, Tarpy says, should I pin the terms? You have them? Absolutely. I would like to read the terms aloud. That being said, the point of us getting together and doing this show was that we did have an amazing time. You guys loved the show, and you loved Bubba, and the crowd erupted in applause in Nashville when you made your announcement.
It was very heartwarming to hear that.
It was, and I mean that was the highlight I think of the panel. Was, you know, I mean, all the panel was great, but when you said I'm returning, I mean, just people lost their minds. So,
so we had a plan. So we talked about that. So initially, so let's even go back just a little bit further than that. So you had, I was on vacation, and you had tested me, said, "Do you want to come to Nashville?" And my response was, "What's Nashville?" and you're like, "Well, okay, it's this is I'm doing a panel and all these things." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds interesting. It would be interesting because we had kind of talked. Maybe it was time I could come back to the show and we could do something different." We'd kind of played around with that. And I told him, I'm on vacation. Let me get back to work, make sure things are okay, and that's going to work out. And then I got back to work, and things were not okay.
Yeah, things kind of exploded.
I went from like 98% certain I was going to Nashville to 0% certain the minute I got back to work, and that was unfortunate. But we talked about. I did a video that got shown, and so then we said, okay, well, what's the right time for me to come back? Because I don't really want to talk a lot about Star Trek Fleet Command. So those of you who are hoping to get my opinion on what's been going on since February of Star Trek Fleet Command, it's not really what I want to do, and that's not what I want to be here. My fear would be that I would be overly negative and I would bring the show down, even though there is a bit of a yin and yang between us. But part of that worked because sometimes I liked things and you didn't, and vice versa. I don't think that I have a lot of positive things to say about Star Trek Fleet Command, so I don't really want to be that person in a Star Trek Fleet Command content creation. But we had talked about that we really like doing podcasts together.
Yeah.
And we wanted to do something a little bit different. So we said, when's the right time to do something like that? And we thought, well, between the arcs, there's usually a nice break. There's usually an opportunity to do things like that. So we said, after Nashville, we will plan for between the arcs. And what happened?
A hurricane smashed my house.
Right. So Mother Nature had other plans for us. We didn't do a podcast between the arcs, and so it didn't happen. So this is the next opportunity after the hurricane. Mother Nature did not stop us. My airplane tried to stop us, but Mother Nature did not stop us.
His airplane lost power. I mean, this sounds like a terrifying story. He was like, "Oh no, it's no big deal.
It's no big deal.
No big deal. It's fine." The airplane lost power. They were stuck. Okay, first of all, how many of you guys get claustrophobic in an airplane if the fans are not on full blast? I have to have the fans on, otherwise I just can't breathe. All right, if the little fan is not blowing, and by the way, I'll take it for the person sitting next to me. I'll take it for the person sitting next to them. Like all three fans are just blasting on my face, and I don't care. All right, I'll take it. If they adjust it, I'm going to adjust it again. It's either you give me your air or I'm going to barf in your lap. Okay, so I have the fans running. But the fans weren't working.
No fans,
the lights
no
were
lights.
out. He landed at like 10 o'clock at night, so it's pitch black outside in a small regional airport where the last flight landed 3 hours.
There's
there
like
was no lights.
No lights.
No lights anywhere. And so they're in a dead vehicle. Okay, with no battery, no electricity, and
So
he's
there's
like,
there's
I'm
ground
just
crew.
gonna go ahead and take a nap for a little while, and I'm thinking I would have been arrested. I would have had to have been sedated. All right, because I would have lost my mind in that.
Yeah, they might have had a Trent gun on board. That would have been,
my God.
Someone tries to get up and they just, zero in on them.
Yeah, that would have been me. I would have preferred to have been tranquilized than be sitting there panicked.
They eventually got an APU out, hooked it up to the
Eventually.
plane, and then we had lights and we had fans and we could deplane, and that made everyone happy.
Oh God, I can't even think about it, dude. It's creeping me out.
So no,
Anyway.
it was not a Spirit flight.
No. So anywho, that happened, and then but nonetheless, nothing stopped us. We came in, and the idea was to always kind of come back and try to put together a show. And the cadence of this show is probably going to be like what we had planned and what we're telling you guys, between the arcs. So probably monthly, we're going to try to bring you this special edition of Talking Trek. It is still Talking Trek.
And it is the purest version of Talking Trek.
That's right, because we are going to step outside of the world of Star Trek Fleet Command and actually look at the Star Trek universe. Today, for example, we're going to talk to you a little bit about Lower Decks. We're going to talk a little bit about Prodigy over on Netflix. And we're going to talk about exclusive news and information from San Diego Comic-Con, where you were there. You were a part of what was happening with all the Star Trek universe stuff. And crazy enough, I don't even know how, but this is not widely reported.
Yep.
You were telling me about it. I didn't hear about it. I haven't known anything about it. And I like to think that my ears are relatively close to the Paramount lot, and I have not heard about this. So we're going to share with you a new show in development currently by someone that you guys are going to know and love within the Star Trek universe, and it's probably going to be something that nobody's really going to want to miss. We're going to talk a little bit about that and what it could potentially be in this segment coming up a little bit later today. But this show, the truest form, as you mentioned, of talking Trek, because we are going to talk real Trek.
Yep.
And Dominus Prime says, will there be anything about STFC in this pod? Not specifically. Maybe something relates, maybe something ties in, but the pure focus of this podcast, this once a month podcast, which maybe we will end up eventually separating somehow. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But is going to be what is going on in the world of Star Trek. And I can tell you that we are trying to make some big waves with this thing. Not only are we going to be keeping you guys up to date with what's going on in the Star Trek universe, but our plan is to actually bring some of the Star Trek universe to you guys. We had talked here several months ago after the Star Trek cruise that Dr. Aaron McDonald had agreed to come on the show. That is proceeding as planned. Dr. Mohammed Noor is a physicist, an advisor, and consultant for the Star Trek universe. He has agreed to come on the show. So our hope over the course of, say, 12 shows, 13 shows throughout a year is to maybe, hopefully, bring a little bit of Star Trek to you guys in the form of the stars, and hopefully we'll be able to capture one or two cast members throughout the year to bring them to you. As a matter of fact, you and I were talking at dinner the other night that the cruise was really a remarkable way to network with the Star Trek universe and the family of cast. We have had conversations. I've had conversations with Sonequa Martin Green, which is incredible, and Ethan Peck, which was incredibly awesome. And so we've got a lot that we are wanting to bring to you guys. All right, and that is kind of what we're hoping to do with this special edition, the return of Bubba Joe onto the Talking Trek platform once a month, where we'll just step outside of the game and bring you guys other Star Trek and still about the franchise that we know and love. The only reason that you guys are here, the only reason that you guys still play the game, aside from maybe your friends, is Star Trek.
Yep.
And so we're going to bring you more of that.
Dr. Juby, I see you. I don't know that any of those names are going to work, but we'll take them under advisement.
What? Trekking with two old men. Old men yell at Trek. Trek to the retirement home. Star Trek and Inshore. You know what, Juby? I love all of those. I
don't think any of those are going to get us the audience we're hoping for.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, someone would be like, what is this ridiculousness? So anyway, Albus says Bubba Joe needs to return just to terrify Echo. Well,
I don't want to terrify Echo.
Echo's good people.
I don't dislike Echo.
Yeah, he's good people, and he's not in Community anymore, so he's not around for us to really terrorize a great deal. Anyway,
I like that. We'll take that name.
Talking Trek says
How about that?
Bitstringer.
How about that for a name?
Well, we got one. All right, yeah. So yeah, you got it, Mitt. That's the best one. So that's what we're here to do, and it's a little bit earlier, just because I think ordinarily it'll still probably be a normal time, but
normal-ish. I'm not starting a podcast at 7 or 8 o'clock with you.
Yeah, it'll be fine. But today had to be a little bit earlier because he's here. He's here on the mountain. And he's got a
I gotta go catch a flight because I gotta get back.
Trek off my lawn.
Ooh, there you go.
He literally said that to me the other night at dinner. Yes. What was the scenario? We were having dinner, which, by the way, was phenomenal. What a great place that we sat to have dinner. And I was telling him something, and I don't remember what it was. And you were like, "Oh my God, DJ, like you're having a get off my lawn moment." I don't remember what it was about.
I don't remember either.
But he literally just told me to get off his lawn. And I was like, I don't appreciate the connotation. In the meantime, let's get some of this out of the way. It has been nearly 8 months since you've been on the podcast. Goblin says, I hope you're doing well. Juby has asked how you're doing. Medic says, how are you, Bubba? Alba says, Bubba, what have you been up to? Tell us a little bit about you over the last 8 months.
Well, so I'm not playing Star Trek Fleet Command, so I seem to have found a copious amount of time to do other things. Play a few video games. Work has been work, and picked up a new mobile game, a couple of new mobile games that I enjoy. I don't know that we necessarily need to promote them here, but I am playing other mobile games that we talked about it on the stream yesterday, and I mentioned it a couple of times in chat. And but yeah, so I'm still playing games. I still love to play games. I was telling DJ last night, I fly back home. I fly back to secret location number 1 as opposed to the secret location number 2 that I live at.
Sure, yeah.
And I fly back to secret location number 1 often to play board games with my friends that I have had over the last 20 years, and just to do that. So I am a gamer at heart, and my very core is playing games. And so when I got done playing with Star Trek Fleet Command, I had to find other games to play. I had to fill that void. I needed that in my life, and I found some, and I've enjoyed them, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. Showed some of the content to DJ of some of the content creators for that game, and I think he's got some ideas. He's like, I could do some of that, or I can't do some of that. Some of that's way beyond me, but some of that looks cool.
He's a ridiculously good content creator for that game.
Yeah, not that you're going to switch and play the game, because Star Trek still dominates your gaming time. But
here's the thing. I could literally exactly rip off and duplicate his content, and it would still apply here.
Yes, it would.
It's funny, though, because we talk about gaming, and we could actually spend a few minutes on this. How has your experience with other games been different than it was when you played with Scopely? And not only that, like, how has the community changed a little bit? Because what I observed, what you have told me was that, it's vastly different, and you feel better and you feel appreciated by the gaming company. Yet when we watch like content like we saw yesterday, it seems like their community loves to rage and hate the gaming company as well.
Well, I mean, that's, I think, a common thing in games, is that the community sometimes can overreact to things. And we did as well. We would be very myopic when something would go wrong.
Yeah.
And we would exaggerate, and that's absolutely something that would happen. But I think that, there were always undertones of legitimate complaints. Right. We would say the scoring of this is bad because this, that, and the other reason, or this event's not functioning and that's bad for this, that, and the other reason, or this new content is not useful for these reasons. Right. So we had legitimate complaints, but we would often, for clicks, for lack of a better thing,
how dare you, sir?
Make it much, much worse than it could have been. But there was always legitimate feedback in there. And I think what we watched yesterday, the video that we watched and was on the stream, was really just one of those over-exaggerated, it was many minutes of something not working correctly in a game, but it was like that was one small aspect of the game.
Right.
And it wasn't like there are catastrophic upon catastrophic upon catastrophic failures of this game. It just happened to be one thing that was what prompted a video to be made.
I am not familiar with anything catastrophic upon catastrophic upon catastrophic that's happened in the last 3 days.
No.
So anyway, it was fun.
Regardless,
it's fun to look outside of that scope.
Yes. And the reason, realistically, what I wanted to do is to help the community, right? I wanted to show DJ. I'm like, hey, maybe you can't replicate all of this, but let's look at the visual of what's going on here. Look at what they're doing, how they're pulling this together. And is this something that you can do with your setup? I mean, he's got this studio here, right? So you've got your DJ station, you got I bet there's something you can do with something like this, or you can make your own content in a similar style that would then be very appealing to your audience, which could help grow your audience as well.
It was an interesting reaction when I actually showed him the studios. I showed him Studio B. I showed him the Talking Trek studios, and very much like any broadcast studio. All right, for any of you who work in the industry, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. But you walk into any broadcast studio, and it typically looks pretty good on stream. The camera angles and everything look good. The lighting is all right, although I'm struggling with lighting today. I've got a messed up ring light. But regardless, outside of the scope of this camera, It is an absolute wreck. All right. So when I brought him in here, I was like, just ignore the mess. You know, there's garbage.
But the thing is that you look at professional places and they are just as much a mess outside of the zone of the camera.
That's right.
The camera sees this. Anything outside of that is just like
exactly
cables
what it is in here.
And so
right?
that's not a big deal. I've seen that before. That's not uncommon. So,
but it was interesting to show off like how trashy this place actually is. But it actually looks okay on stream. Sure. Studio B is incredibly deceptive, right? Yeah. Like you see what I have set up for Studio B, and you see what happens on stream, and it's like, how does this even work? It's all magic, everybody. It's all magic.
So what do we? So I know you got to take a break at some point. I know how long have we been going? I don't know what's.
We've been on for about 40 minutes now.
Okay,
actually,
so you're gonna take a break here soon, and you want to do a little Trek talk, and then. We'll talk about some of the new shows and talk about San Diego, and then take another break, and then maybe end the show with a little AMA for people, because it seems like people still want to talk about things.
Sure, absolutely, and that sounds great. So what we will do, now we need pics of the studio. Never going to happen. No, never, ever going to happen. But we do have some stuff to share with you a little bit. It's Twitch. There are no breaks. Well, it is a Twitch simulcast, and we are taping for podcasts as well. So we do, unfortunately, still have to take those breaks. The good news is for those of you hanging out in the Twitch audience, you'll actually get our break, which means you get a little bit of music and you get a little bit of chipmunk voice and a little bit of fun stuff happening.
You didn't say anything about that.
I have no idea, sir, that you didn't know.
You promised me there would be no chipmunks.
I did no such thing. Absolutely did not promise that in any way, shape, or form. But we will step aside for a quick pause for the cause as we take a very short break here on a very special episode of Talking Trek with a special VIP guest host and return to the stage of Mr. Bubba Joe. We'll be back right after these words to get into the Star Trek universe. What is happening all across the Paramount Studios with Lower Decks, with Prodigy, and most importantly, a brand new series in development that it seems like very few people actually know about. We're going to share that and so much more right here on Yes, he's back. Bubba Joe is back. What's up? How you doing, everybody? Welcome back into the show. Talking Trek is on your earbuds, on your podcast stations, on your iHeartRadio, on your iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, Google, YouTube Music, and anywhere else that you might listen to your favorite podcast.
It's a lot of platforms.
It's a lot of platforms. We've got so many platforms. And I appreciate you guys consuming our content on every single one of them. Not only on the podcast platforms, but also here on Twitch and on YouTube as well. So I appreciate you guys all. And yes, Bubba Joe is indeed back. Omicron says, all right, quick note on the game.
I saw this note. I think that's a first.
No. They did nothing. They just left it last time, and it took 6 months. That's right. All the events are now actually lined up. It's an early Christmas miracle. That's because they never fixed them at Spring Forward time.
But it's entirely possible that they've been doing that in the past and still
messed it up.
So
yeah. So,
accidentally or on purpose, it is a early Christmas miracle.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so we'll give you that one, Omicron, early Christmas miracle. So listen, let's talk a little bit about, first of all, I want to talk about the shows in development. We did watch Lower Decks. We watched episode 3 together yesterday.
That was fantastic. That was a lot of fun.
Both of us have watched episodes 1 and 2 separately. We watched 3 together in the living room yesterday, which was really a great episode.
Yes.
It was very, very good. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, a little bit about Prodigy that we'll talk about. But moreover, I want to talk a little bit about what is going on in the production studios as far as Paramount goes. Because a lot of people are saying, okay, oh my God, are they finally going to give us an update on Legacy? Well, sadly, no. All right, as far as I can tell, and even this was strangely avoided during San Diego Comic-Con, that Legacy really wasn't discussed.
No.
You have any insight or anything at all?
I got nothing on Legacy, and that's really unfortunate because that seems like it's ripe for an opportunity for a show to exist. It's not going to conflict with anything else. It kind of go off on its own.
Yeah. They're going to miss a window on that, though. I think there's still hope on that. I mean, obviously, actors get older and whatnot, but I still think there's an opportunity for a show led by Jerry Ryan and Michelle, Rafi, and I think there's still a possibility of something like that. But I think they have to get the right story and right crew, and I think that there's still a lot of desire to do something like that. But they have to figure it out. I think all the things that they've announced they were already kind of moving forward, and with the success of Picard season 3 being so much higher than season 1 or season 2, I think that they were caught off guard that there was a position for this somewhere. So I think that's I think that Star Trek Legacy still has the possibility, but I think they're still trying to figure out exactly what they want to do. Whereas all the other stuff that we're going to talk about today already was in motion long before San Diego Comic-Con, and they were in a position where they felt like they could announce it. So. Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, you had kind of honed in on something there that perhaps the calls for Legacy were something that did surprise them. I don't know if it should have been a surprise, but it was very much fan invented.
It was. And the thing is that, as much as I, as a Star Trek fan and a kind of a Star Trek enthusiast, I enjoyed season 1 and season 2 of Picard. I could also, as a evaluator of media, like anyone, not I don't know anything special there, could see that there were some flaws in season 1 and season 2. There were some problems with Picard. And season 3, I felt kicked all of those to the curb. It was fantastic. A little bit of fan service towards the end, but still, it was such a well done season of the show, that it really, I want to see more of these characters that kind of lived in this era of the show. So I think that reaction was one they were not necessarily prepared for. Because early on, they said, we're going to do 3 seasons of Picard.
Yeah. It was meant to be Picard. It really was. It wasn't meant to be this nostalgic throwback that Terry Matalas ended up putting together for us. And I think he recognized that early and just captivated on it. I mean, he was very brilliant as the producer and showrunner for that, and kind of either anticipated that it was going to happen or very quickly and effectively turned the boat in that direction, because it ended up being a very nostalgic. It ended up being Star Trek The Next Generation Season 8 is what it ended up being.
In a way,
so what fans then kind of came out and said is, oh my God, let's continue this story.
Right.
And your expectation is that Terry was in the moment. He was focused on this, not looking at what could come next, because we knew that this was season 3 and we knew it was the final season from a production standpoint. And it was never really discussed by Paramount or the studios or even the cast as to whether or not there was an actual contractual and production future to Star Trek Legacy. As a matter of fact, Legacy was indeed a fan-invented theme. Legacy was the title of this show that was purely fan-invented. And then, of course, the calls just ramped up. I mean, it was like throwing gasoline on fire.
Yep. So I think that I personally believe that something like Star Trek Legacy has legs. It still exists in the mind of Paramount. I mean, I don't have any confirmation of that. I don't have any insight into Paramount. But my belief is that Star Trek Legacy is still something that can happen, but is not going to happen before the things that we're going to talk about today, which have been announced and have either real release dates or real production going on.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, of course, one of the newest upcoming features that people are talking about, which, you know, I would love to actually get your opinion on the trailer. I know we watched it on stream one day. Mm-hmm. And this trailer actually left me confused. Now, it's not going to prevent me from not watching this film, which, of course, we're talking about Section 31 releasing on.
It left you confused?
Yes.
So they showed the trailer that you got to see online at San Diego Comic-Con, and the audience erupted. It was fantastic.
I didn't feel a story in that particular trailer. I saw, you know, Michelle Yeoh, who was just brilliant and beautiful and amazing, and I saw her kicking total ass. But I don't think I felt the story. Now, I've read more about Section 31 in preparation for this show, and it does feel like they've got a very interesting story.
Well, but it is just a movie. They're not doing a show.
I know.
Yeah, so it's just.
But there has to be a good story.
I mean, it doesn't have to be. Have you seen? I mean, there are movies that don't have good stories. You know,
Fair.
if we get Fast and the Furious, Star Trek, like I'm not going to complain about that. Like, you know, we get Transformers, Star Trek. I'm not going to complain about that. I mean,
Okay.
I'm okay with a Star Trek action movie, which would lead us into the thing that hasn't gotten a lot of press, which would be like Star Trek is very much a sci-fi show, right? It has a lot of science built into it. It makes people think. It gives you thought-provoking things. There's a lot of things in there where it talks about social issues and spins them into Star Trek mode, and that's great. But I'm also okay with a Star Trek action movie. And if that's what Section 31 turns into, is a Star Trek action movie that story is a little bit weak, I'm going to be okay with that too, because I like action movies. I like Star Trek.
Sure.
Putting them together could still be a lot of fun.
And it's not that I was confused about it, Mosher. It was just that I didn't find the familiar elements of a story, right? Like, we all kind of expected or anticipated what Section 31 was going to be about. It was going to be about Captain Georgiou, or Emperor Georgiou, being recruited by Section 31 after it was discovered that she couldn't exist in our timeline.
Right.
And so I figured, to me, the kind of story was, what are they going to do with her, and what is she going to be? Is she actually building Section 31? Because she could have been the first big baddie of Section 31. Now, Section 31 obviously already existed when they brought her in.
Correct.
But, I mean, I think, kind of implied that she was going to be the kingpin of Section 31. She was a true mirror universe.
No, I never got that impression from what I saw before the trailer. I think that this was just going to be their, you know, it's going to be their maybe even their first, but their Sloan. It'll be their Sloan from Deep Space Nine. It'll be their alpha agent that's going to go do the most dangerous things, the most absurd intelligence missions.
Well, yeah, the big BA of Section 31.
Well, but not. I mean, she's not going to be the boss of Section 31. She is going to be the chief agent that's going to go out and do things her way to protect the Federation. Right. So, I mean, it could be anything, and I'm going to be excited to see it because Michelle Yeoh is absolutely fantastic.
She is, and a lot of what they have actually done so far is kept the secret or kept the storyline relatively quiet. There's been very, very little. As a matter of fact, you can see in the chat right now, Cruzita says, I hope they tell the story of how Section 31 got started in the history. And honestly, I'm not expecting a great deal of that. There could be a little bit of flashback on that, but I think that the focus of this is going to be how Empress Georgiou just kicks butt. Right?
Yeah, don't forget that Section 31 existed before Discovery. It existed in the time of Enterprise. So the story of how Section 31 started is really an Enterprise story, not a Discovery timeline story.
Sure. And so that's why I kind of see, when she comes in and is going to be, their chief agent, their 007, if you will, then I want to see a great story in that. Now, I am a sucker for a good story. All right. If it's an action movie, so be it. Again, like I said at the beginning, it's not going to prevent me from watching this. All right. I'm absolutely going to be in. And just in case any of you guys were counting down, this is coming very soon. We are within 75 days. We were within 75 days of the launch of Section 31 on Paramount Plus. It launches in January of 2025. The exact date, I don't believe. Actually, we do. I think it was end of January.
Yeah, the end of January. I believe.
Close to my birthday. Yep. We're gonna see if we can work with them on a watch party. I'm sure they don't care about us.
Hypodermics. My understanding is it's going to be exclusively on Paramount Plus, but that does not mean that can't have some sort of exclusive release. Like the streaming services sometimes will do a limited theater release, right? So I would say that that's a possibility, but my guess is it's going to be mostly Paramount Plus.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is currently slated to launch January 24th on the Paramount Plus streaming service. That is Section 31. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what we have learned about the storyline since then.
Okay.
And this, by the way, is completely unconfirmed, but I've heard whispers and read whispers about them actually filling in some time span gaps. All right. I don't know if you've heard about this or if it was mentioned, and I could be completely wrong.
Okay.
All right. But given
You are sitting down.
given the fact that she can't exist in any one time frame for very long, right? She's got to move around. I believe that there could be some credence to some rumors that I've read online about exploring a little bit of the Enterprise C story. Have you heard anything about that at all? Nothing.
No.
Ooh, I'm actually curious in the chat if anybody has heard anything about that, or if that would be something that's interesting. Because, when you're talking about canon, you're talking about the history of the Enterprise. There is a span there. Enterprise C, little bit of Enterprise B, but mostly Enterprise C that is completely, up to this point, completely non-existent throughout canon. You had yesterday's Enterprise, which was a TNG episode, and that is literally one of the only things that have ever come out about the Enterprise C. It's been written about in novels, it's been talked about briefly in some of the comics, but not actually given a story. And I had, again, only heard a little bit of whisper about the fact that we could actually see, maybe not a full-on story, but we are going to see the presence of the Enterprise C in Section 31.
It's possible.
Would that be of interest to you? Chat?
I mean, if we get something for the Enterprise C, I will be happy with it, but I'm not desperate for Enterprise C information. That's
Really?
Just me. Yeah.
See, I think I like it. Because I like to fill in the gap. All right. Albus says he wants to see something more on the Borg. I feel like we did a lot of Borg in Picard.
We did.
But obviously, going back in time, we could definitely see some more. So I don't know. There's a lot of ways you could work the Borg into that. However, we do know, all right, and this is, like I said, just whispers. I say I know. What I know is that I've read these supposed reports out of some of the Hollywood reporting and so forth that the Enterprise C is going to make an appearance. Now, it could just be something simple. It could be an incident of a flash of light related to the story, but I think we're going to see some of these fan service kind of ties in to Section 31. You and I were talking about Lower Decks and Prodigy and how there's a lot of fan service there, even in Picard, and we'll talk a little bit about how that can translate moving forward. Do you think that fan service can and should exist in Section 31?
Oh, I think it has to. I think the only way a Section 31 show is going to work is having some level of fan service. But I'm not certain that the fan service that's necessary is a tie-in to Enterprise C. In fact, I would prefer that it stay out of the Enterprise timeline, right? That would be my
Well,
preference.
Enterprise C exists outside of all the timelines anyway. I mean, the Enterprise C, unfortunately, never existed anywhere in our timeline that we know of. I mean, clearly, it existed at some point, but there's no stories about it whatsoever.
Well, but I mean, what I'm saying is that the Enterprise C exists in a time that is between, the beginning of Generations and Next Generation, right? So that's the timeline of Enterprise C, right? I would prefer to keep Giorgio in the timeline and technology that she existed in a different universe of that Discovery timeline, right? Because otherwise you are left with trying to tell a story of how someone is not familiar with the technology, right?
Well,
and so I don't really like, I don't like, especially for just a movie. If you have a show, you can spend a little more time on it. But for a movie, I want there to be very little about that is, I want to, I've got to get used to the technology, or I got to understand how this weapon works, or I got to understand how the car drives, or I got to understand how we warp, or get rid of all of that. Assume that she is familiar with the knowledge, which means it has to be a timeline she's familiar with, and let's go. Let's move with that. So I don't want to have to spend, especially for just a movie, I don't want there to be this learning curve that we have to participate with on the show. And then if there is no learning curve, but there should be, that's going to take me out of the movie, right? That's going to be like, well, how is she familiar with any of this, right?
So let me ask you this. This is actually, by the way, not in our notes. So we're going to wing this, shoot from the hip, because we weren't really prepared to talk a little bit about Discovery today, but let's do that because there is a lot of that type. And I don't know that the writers on Discovery spent a great deal of time educating us about how the new technology worked. I mean, there might have been a couple of moments here and there, but I think it was very intuitive how they did some of the technology changes. And, even listening to Sonequa's podcast that she had done with Dominic and Connor Trenier, they talked about how they were kind of writing their own canon. Like, okay, is it 2 taps for transport, 1 tap for getting a weapon? They talked about what they were going to do with their combats, but a lot of that happened off air. Right? It just kind of presented itself like I don't think we spent a lot of screen time learning the new technology in Discovery.
Well, that's true, but the point is that this person, this character, has existed in a timeline of things existing, and not like the future Discovery timeline. This is the past Discovery timeline, not where Discovery ended, where you're talking about 1 tap, 2 taps, all that stuff. The way that they use material integration and transportation and stuff like that. That's completely different, right? But I'm talking about the early timeline when we're talking about transportation is still a risk. There's some uncertainty to it. We're talking about the timeline of some people still preferring to use shuttles, or some people still preferring to use exosuits as opposed to, so there is a established amount of technology and story, and I would like to keep her in something that makes sense, right? And I just don't, I'm concerned that for a movie, if you're going to spend 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes that could have been devoted to something like story or some other better part of this. So it's anything is possible, because all I know is what was in the trailer. This trailer you guys can find. It's on YouTube. It's on the Paramount site. So you can absolutely find this. But I would like to keep her in an era that she is familiar with, right? And that's my goal. That would be my wish for the show, is to keep Giorgio in an era she is familiar with. And if they do want to leave the door open on more Section 31, then maybe at the end of that movie, that is move her forward, right? Move her to some other timeline to do something.
Let's talk a little bit about the development of Section 31 and its delays, because I think the only reason we ended up with a movie is probably because we're probably at the end of the line with Michelle Yeoh. I mean, her career has exploded. She has done amazing, wonderful, great things. And because I believe Section 31 was originally intended to be a series. And
there was talk of it being a series for sure.
I think honestly we just ran out of time with her. I mean, not that I'm privy to a lot of the details, but I know that her original contract for Philippa Georgiou was getting ready to run out. We ran out of time to make 3 seasons worth of Section 31. Now, whether or not Paramount can get her back, whether or not Sundance can get her back, whatever ends up happening with all of that, remains to be seen. But as far as this right here, her obligation to the Star Trek universe ends with the Section 31 film, just because we ran out of time. Do you see Michelle Yeoh wanting or being incentivized to come back for more Georgiou in the future?
I did not see Picard coming back to do Picard, and I think that if there is an interesting,
it's been 30 years though.
That's what I'm saying. Is that I thought that our opportunity to get a Picard story had long passed when they relaunched Picard. So I'm not going to doubt anything. I think that actors are motivated by a compelling story, good direction, and something that interests them, especially actors that get into a certain age, right? So I think that if they come up with a compelling story that Michelle Yeoh is interested in, she will sign on and do something if she wants to. And if she doesn't, then that might be the end of it, right? They may also take this opportunity to launch these characters that are being introduced with her into follow-on, and where she may not be on the movie, but they could do Section 31,
the new class
or whatever,
yeah.
Right? And launch like we're asking for with Legacy.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think that's, and taking someone who is identified as someone that we recognize and know and would fit into this morally gray area of Section 31, I think that that's an important step if they want to do more, and they could do more either with or without her if they have a compelling story and if she wants to do it.
What do you guys think in the chat? You guys can leave your comments on the podcast. You can leave your emails to talkingtrekstfc@gmail.com, and you can find those links on our website at talkingtrekstfc.com. Where do you find yourself wanting to go with the future of the Star Trek universe? And I'd love to hear a little bit about that. We've talked about Section 31, and honestly, we didn't talk a lot about Discovery, and I think we're going to save that for another day because I feel like season 5 of Discovery actually deserves a real conversation.
Agreed.
It was a phenomenal story, maybe the best story of the entire series, and it actually, this season, makes me sad to say goodbye to Discovery. But you and I had talked last night about how the expectations, like I had even mentioned, 7 seasons, right? Lower Decks. So let's get a 7 seasons.
Right.
You said you wouldn't be surprised if Strange New Worlds doesn't get 7 seasons because the norm is different today.
Yep. Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about that and why Discovery may not have gotten their 7 seasons, but why obviously Lower Decks is not going to get theirs either, and why
Right.
Prodigy, it does not appear that they're going to get their 7 seasons either. So has the paradigm shifted inside the Star Trek universe, and is it actually a bad thing? We'll talk a little bit about that coming up a little bit later as well. But I do want to shift over and talk. Medic's asking questions about Starfleet Academy. Now, there is a lot of information out there. We know that that's coming.
Yep.
We know kind of the story about that. What people don't know, and we can circle back to Starfleet Academy here in just a few moments, Medic, but there is another show in development, currently in development at Paramount right now, that a lot of people don't know about. It was actually revealed at San Diego Comic-Con.
Correct.
And the showrunners, well, one of them is no surprise. The other one is a huge surprise.
Yes.
We will give you that information here in just a moment as well, and you guys are not going to want to miss that. But very quickly, kind of popping back into Lower Decks. All right, we'll spend a few minutes on Lower Decks episode 3 that has I'll tell you this. Last night I always watch this by myself. Obviously, it's just me here, and I might chuckle a little bit, but I'll tell you, I got so much joy last night watching this with you, because when he would chuckle, then I would chuckle, and then if I chuckled, I heard you chuckle. There is something kind of special about watching a TV show together. I know that sounds
contagious laughter.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit weird when you talk about it, but I'll tell you, if there's another fan, and maybe we should even try this at some point, doing like a watch party together, because I feel like there's more emotional attachment to an episode when you're watching it with another true fan. And JT Bob says, spoiler alert. I do absolutely agree. Spoiler alert, because this episode only came out Thursday night.
Yep.
So we'll do a little bit of discussion on that. So there's your spoiler alert that we're going to be talking about Lower Decks season.
Black alert. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, Lower Decks is great to watch together, says Shiny. But it was a great episode. This was an episode in which there were a couple of different stories. And I think Lower Decks has gotten really good. In the very beginning, they did try to tell multiple stories in an episode, but it felt a little bit disjointed at times. I feel like they've gotten really, really good. They've gotten really good because you got to think the episode's only 22 minutes. All right. So not only are they trying to get through an overarching piece or an overarching story for the episode, but they also have gotten really, really good at spending 6 minutes or 7 minutes telling an individual subplot within that episode, meanwhile servicing the entire arc. The writers have just knocked it out of the ballpark. Right. And when you talk about some of the writing team, the names aren't going to surprise you. You had talked to me about that, and I didn't pay attention to the writing team, but you knew about them. Share with the class some of the writing team on Lower Decks.
On Lower Decks?
Yeah.
No, I don't know anything about the Lower Decks.
I thought that's what you and I were talking.
No.
See, completely prepared, everybody. Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5 writing team. All right, you had...
I was talking about the writing team on Prodigy. Not being the same.
Well,
and that being a problem.
Yeah, we know that was a thing there. But I'll tell you,
the writing
team has grown into their own.
Well, yeah. It's the same person that's been there for all 5 seasons, which has helped add some consistency, helped add some. You get consistency across seasons between the characters, right? Which came up in this last episode of Lower Decks, and the fact that we had this storyline that I'm sure you and I were both like, where is this coming from? And then, of course, it was revealed that it was coming back out of the blue for no apparent reason, and that became kind of a plot point. But it was fantastic. It was the way that it was played up, and it was the way that our characters interacted with it was hilarious. It was everything.
It was so socially awkward,
so good. And so I felt a real attachment to the episode. I felt that this was absolutely how the characters would have interacted in this situation and trying to engage or not engage or so it was really a fantastic episode, and it split up our crew.
Yes.
Which was another thing. So we got lots of Lower Decks
story. We got extra story.
We've seen our Lower Decks crew, our 5 intrepid main characters, really do some fantastic things together. But one of them got pulled away, and we had a separate story with that one versus the 4 that remained, and it was absolutely fantastic. And I felt that it hit all the marks and delivered exactly what we're looking for in Lower Decks. And then, of course, brought the stories together, which was fantastic. So
yeah, there was, like I said, the multiple storytelling in this particular episode was really, really good. And of course, not only with the 5 core characters, but you also got to incorporate some of our secondary characters, but those that have also become beloved as well. In this case, Commander Ransom, which was a really, really kind of a funny thing. And the accusation or the innuendo that he would have been doing this thing was totally believable.
Yes.
As well. Especially, and again, I think we're doing a pretty good job at tiptoeing around the spoilers here.
Yes.
So maybe not quite so much a spoiler alert. And I say that, and I'm going to jump right in and give one.
You are. You're bursting at the seams. You're going to let one loose.
But the way that they kind of insinuated that Commander Ransom was going to behave, especially they set it up with that crewman in the very beginning who, all right, spoiler alert, lost his hands. He had no hands. But they grew back. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But
amazing medical technology on Lower Decks.
Great technology. They grew his hands back. So that was a really, really cool storyline. But you also continue to see the evolution of these characters over time, moving into their leadership positions and how the rest of the crew kind of interacts with them. Hypodermic says, though, how is the accusation believable? If it was season 1, sure, but after 4 seasons of what we've seen him do. I'll tell you why. Because he's still a meathead.
Yes.
He's still a meathead.
He's still a bodybuilder jockhead.
Yeah, so it's totally believable that he could not be using all of his brain at one particular point and and just have this pattern of having a meat shield because he's got a meat shield for a brain. So no, but obviously it does also come in and show his sensible side and show why he has earned the rank of commander. So there is some of that, but again, he also, at the very end of the episode, literally the final scene, went back into playing that meathead where the accusation was very real.
Yes.
So the Tarpy says, we don't know anyone who's a smart bodybuilder, do we? I don't know. Is he a bodybuilder? His arms are very small. They're talking about Moopsy. He'll love it.
Oopsie.
Anywho, so you've got a little bit of that with Lower Decks. Now, one of the things that I really wanted to kind of emphasize and look at with pertaining to this episode is how it's going to be building up into the season. We know we've got 10 episodes. We've done 3. We've got 7 episodes left in the final season of Lower Decks. So let's spend a minute and talk about the future of Lower Decks. I think I kind of feel is very similar to what we were just talking about with Picard or even Section 31. This is probably going to close a chapter for quite some time, particularly because that cast is also moving on. You've got Mr. Quaid, who has been, just like Michelle Yeoh, has just blown up on the cinema stage and is highly sought after in a lot of other projects and has done a lot of other projects while he's been working with Paramount for this. But you also have Tawny Newsome, Eugene Cordero, who are also doing great things with their careers. And I'll tell you, the voice of T'Lyn, who was wildly hilarious in this last episode. T'Lyn has, as a character, surprised me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because listen, when she first came in, she was the token Vulcan, but was very. I personally didn't find a great deal of humor with that character in the very beginning. The more time T'Lyn has spent with the Lower Deckers, the more that she has developed a sense of humor. I'd like to get your idea on the evolution of T'Lyn and how she's gone through here, and then we'll talk about what it looks like in the future, maybe with or without her.
So, I think that when they introduced this character, we got the typical Vulcan trying to work with humans, right?
Yeah.
Very typical, except that this Vulcan's a little bit different, right? This Vulcan does not see logic the same way that other Vulcans do. And so putting her in with our crew of Lower Deckers definitely shook them up, but it has caused her to also evaluate logic differently. And I like her evolution in the show, which is not like she's not changing massively, but she is changing just enough to make her interactions with the crew better. Like that's what she's trying to do. And so she is always trying to interact with the crew in a logical fashion, but her logic is definitely being twisted. But it's fantastic comedy when she delivers these responses that are like, well, obviously that's the correct answer, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, but that's not the answer we're going to go with. So I think that her evolution and introduction to the show is really fantastic. But I think what you really are trying to get at, and this is something that was, I don't really think has been reported anywhere, but one of the things that was said in the Q&A portion of the San Diego Comic-Con panel was somebody asked if this is the end of the Cerritos in Star Trek. And the answer was probably not. And so that tells me that even if Lower Decks ends, there is still a chance that we are going to see these characters maybe in another animation, maybe in live action in terms of bringing the Cerritos as something. And again, this may just be fan service. It might just be on screen for 5 seconds, or someone says we need 6 starships. We'll have the USS Dallas and the USS Enterprise G and the Cerritos, right? And so. But I don't believe that the end of Lower Decks is the end of the crew that we love. And I think that there is the possibility that they could come out and exist in some capacity, whether it is off-screen references or a show that is going to continue their legacy in some capacity. Maybe they, are a buddy ship in a show that takes place in the same timeline. And this timeline also hasn't been explored at all. Remember, this is post DS9, post Voyager timeline. This aligns with the Prodigy timeline, but there isn't anything else that fills this timeline. Like there's a big vacancy here. So the fact that we can get more Cerritos potentially with this crew, either in live action or even just in reference, I think is going to help extend the legacy of what has been built in Lower Decks.
The idea that the cast wants to continue to be involved in the Star Trek universe is actually super important. And that, fortunately, is something that we do have a little bit of insight on, because we've had to spend some time. We've gotten to spend some time with Gabrielle Ruiz, who is the voice of T'Lyn. I actually had a great conversation. Spectre, you did too. I see it in the chat. She is an amazing human to chat with, and she made it very, very clear that she would love to continue being T'Lyn. She loves representing T'Lyn. Sure. When she was at the convention in Nashville, we spent a lot of time talking to her, and even the way she signed some of her pictures was very T'Lyn-esque, you know, like, and actually we'll have to show. As a matter of fact, I never got around to this. I talked to you about some of the stuff we're going to auction off for the Christmas Angel Fund. I actually have a couple of items from Gabrielle Ruiz that we are going to auction off with the grand prize item. Some actual autographed, signed by T'Lyn quotes from the show, which is absolutely phenomenal. So we're going to share those with you on a future episode. But Gabrielle Ruiz wants to continue. Tawny Newsome wants to continue.
Yes.
These some of these guys, and Mr. Quaid. I'm trying to remember his first name. Brad.
Dennis?
No, that's not Dennis. It's his son. Dennis Quaid's son is. Oh, let's see. Now I'm going to have to.
It's not Brad. That's the character.
All right, see, yeah, there we go. Jack Quaid. Thank you. Jack Quaid, who is Dennis's son. All right. Yes. But he also, despite being super busy and despite being involved in a lot of other projects, because he's immensely talented, has also expressed the interest in continuing on with Brad Boimler. Says that he's a fun character to play. Yes. So I think that does bode well for the future when you've got an entire cast of people who want to continue with the franchise in some form or fashion. Maybe it's not a full-on series. Maybe it's not a feature film. Maybe it is those cameos. Maybe it is fan service. So the fact that you've got this cast who do want to continue, I think, is absolutely great. And what we have learned is that one of them is actually continuing in a very unique and different way. Yep. And we will tell you about this brand new show that has now been confirmed in development by one of our favorite Lower Deckers, and it comes up right on the other side of this break. This is the special inaugural episode of Talking Trek with the return of Bubba Joe. We're going to take a very quick break and more from inside the Star Trek universe on the other side of this break. My name is Ultimate DJz. This is Bubba Joe, and we'll be back right after these words.
Today's show brought to you in part by the Musgrove Trial Firm in Georgia. Have you suffered personal injury in Georgia? You need a buddy. Give Buddy at the Musgrove Trial Firm a call, 678-226-1994. Visit them online at musgrovetrialfirm.com. Portion of the show brought to you by crazybunch.org. Do you suffer from pixel fatigue? Well, we've got a gummy for that. Surtail has the answers for your health and wellness needs, especially when gaming. A gummy for blue light protection and eye health, an energy gummy, or how about a relaxation gummy to help you chill after Wardod kills all your miners? Surtail is an independent distributor of all the aerial products you'll need to improve your gaming experience. Message Surtail on Discord or go to crazybunch.org. Yo, what's up, Commanders? Great news about PvPtarget.com. You've known for a while that it exists and has some great reference tools regarding PvP banding and common crew loadouts, but they've recently launched brand new tools on the site, including a brand new cargo calculator page as well. This isn't your typical max cargo style calculator, but a brand new, unique tool that identifies the timer until you go over cargo. The game timer might tell you how long to zero the node, but how long until your miner is at risk? You can find out now by using the brand spanking new cargo calculator at PvPtarget.com.
in the Lower Decks trailer.
Yay, bugs!
That in almost every universe, Ensign Kim is still an ensign.
Still an ensign, yes.
So I'm looking forward to that episode. Spoiler alert: that is not the episode we just watched. That is still in the future.
That's right. Yeah,
Lower
we
Decks.
haven't. That one has not come out yet. Not episode 3, but Ensign Kim was displayed in the trailer for the final season of Lower Decks as still being an Ensign Kim throughout the multiverse. So all different timelines, universes, and galaxies and dimensions, and he's still an ensign. Poor guy.
A poor guy.
Yeah, he had that one episode in Voyager where he did make it to lieutenant, but then he wiped that future out. Do you remember that when he came back? Voyager, they were trying to use the slipstream drive, and his calculations were wrong. Voyager crashed into the ice and died, but him and I think it was Chakotay made it home. Right? He came back as a lieutenant, but then wiped that future out when he saved the Voyager crew.
I have tried to block out most of Voyager.
Oh, come on. That was a good one. I actually liked that. Swifty, that's not a spoiler. That's old. Oh, wait, he was a captain for that? Well, he still wasn't an ensign. Was he a captain? He wasn't a captain, was he?
I think he was. I think he was a captain of a ship.
Oh, okay. He was the captain of a ship. Okay, well, I didn't remember that. I thought either way, he wasn't an ensign. Okay? Wasn't an ensign. But then he wiped that future out, so he messed all that one up. So, anyway, listen, with regards to the future of certain Star Trek properties, we have talked a little bit about Starfleet Academy very briefly. We know that that's coming. We'll talk more about that in the future. What they revealed during San Diego Comic-Con was another new series in development. Tell us a little bit about that, Bubba. What was reported at San Diego Comic-Con that our audience may not know about yet?
So we'll talk about this. So I want to time check here because I think we'd said 1:30. I kind of like to keep it to 1:15. So we got about half an hour.
Got about half hour left,
okay.
which would be good because that'll put us right at 4 hours for the show.
So, okay. So the thing that was not really talked about, and part of that I'm sure is because there wasn't a ton of information, right? They didn't give us a date. They didn't give us a year. They just gave us a premise, right? And so they announced a Star Trek themed comedy.
Yeah.
And a live action comedy.
Live action comedy.
And so, okay, well, you know, we've seen sci-fi comedies before. That's not entirely unusual. We've seen things like that. So, but what would make this special? Why would this be something they would want to talk about at Comic-Con? And well, the reason for that is that one of the writers for the show is going to be Tawny Newsome.
Yes, Tawny Newsome is leading up the writer's room on a brand new Star Trek comedy. Now, for those of you who have ever met Tawny Newsome or have ever seen her work outside of Lower Decks, she is absolutely brilliant. She is a comedic genius. I have seen her perform multiple times, not only with herself, but Eugene Cordero, who plays Rutherford in Lower Decks. They're both brilliant. They're very, very funny people. So when you told me that Tawny was actually developing with Alex Kurtzman, developing this Star Trek live action comedy, then this really kind of made my day because I know that her comedy is great.
Like a live action comedy. You were a little hesitant. You don't have to lie about that.
I mean, only hesitant in that Star Trek is trying a lot of new things, which is never bad, okay? As a matter of fact, we have all agreed and talked about that this is what Star Trek should have been doing 30 years ago. This is why Star Wars has such a leg up on them, all right, among many other things. But the Star Wars and Star Trek universes are nowhere near in comparison for size. The Star Trek fandom is smaller, and the Star Trek fandom is growing older, okay? They have not done a very excellent job at wrapping in children. I think Prodigy is a step in the right direction, but they got to keep going, all right? You look on Saturday morning cartoons, Nickelodeon, you look on Disney XD, you look at all these things, there's literally Star Wars everywhere. Star Wars Legos and Star Wars, cartoons and Star Wars CGI animation and all this stuff. Star Wars is everywhere for kids. Star Trek hasn't done that yet.
Well,
They
tried, right? They did Prodigy, and that was met with some success, right? We've agreed that we both eventually liked Prodigy, right? Season 1 of Prodigy. we're gonna table Prodigy season 2 until you've seen some episodes. Maybe we can talk about them.
Yeah, I got some catch up.
You got some catch up to do, so we could talk about that at a later date. But I've already seen Prodigy season 2, so I have my own opinions. But no, they have not tried to develop that younger audience like the way that Star Wars has, and that's holding them back in some capacity. I don't know that this is going to be that, but
Probably
someone
not
in the
for
chat,
kids.
B. Smith said Star Trek Orville, and my response to that would
Orville.
be it would be Star Trek Orville if Orville was funny.
Oh, come on. I loved Orville. I thought Orville, well, this is what. This is the difference in the kind of humor that we appreciate. You and I were actually talking about this yesterday.
Yes.
I loved Orville because it was crass.
Yes, and I did
It
not
was-
like Orville because it was crass.
It was lowbrow, okay? I thought it was very funny, but it was very lowbrow humor.
so.
It was Seth MacFarlane humor.
It
I
was
mean,
Seth
it's
MacFarlane humor. If you
Family
like-
Guy
if you
humor,
like
and
Seth-
American Dad.
If
and-
you like Seth MacFarlane, you will like the Orville.
that's right.
You are wrong. Just sit down and be wrong. You are wrong.
The Simpsons, like all of that style of comedy,
Yes.
that's always been very funny to me. So, but as Spectre points out, Orville did develop some serious tones later in its seasons. It matured.
It did.
But it definitely started out, very, very funny. I mean, there was some stuff in that. That being said, that actually was my concern. And it actually is kind of your concern as well, that I'm afraid that it's going to copy the Orville, or at least it's going to be perceived that way. But your concern is the same concern, but from the opposite perspective, that
Yes.
you don't want it to be that style of comedy.
Correct.
So this is a brand new live action comedy being developed by Tawny Newsome and Justin Simeon, who's her partner on this, and then, of course, Alex Kurtzman. We don't know any details about this.
Correct.
What is the crew? What is the setting?
We don't know any of that.
Is Mariner returning? Is Boimler returning? We don't know any of this. This is why we were kind of talking about, is it possible that the Cerritos is done, or can they return? And it's certainly very possible that if they returned in this particular franchise or this particular show, then it almost certainly would be in a cameo form, fan service kind of form. I don't think that they're going to do a live action with all the same cast. That being said, this is an opportunity for the Cerritos to live on in their humorous nature, is to appear in this as of yet unnamed comedy series being developed by Tawny Newsome. So this is why I was saying earlier, too, that it's interesting and refreshing to see that the Lower Deck cast wants to continue with Star Trek.
Yes.
And I think that is a huge, huge thing
And
for the franchise as a whole.
that is probably more important than the show itself, right? The fact that Tawny is getting right back into another Star Trek show because she wants to, because it's something that she feels that she's going to be good for and good at, and wants to expand her horizons in this role, being a writer. So I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how that evolves. But the fact that she is going to be involved gives me a lot of hope that this is going, because she has a sense for comedy that has really helped Mike McMahon on Lower Decks
For sure.
make a good show. And so the fact that the actors have helped evolve that show into something that is not just lowbrow comedy, not that it ever really got to very lowbrow, but made it be smart comedy throughout the series of the show, I think is important. And my hope and my wish is that this new Star Trek comedy, live action comedy, is going to kind of follow in those shoes and be smart and exciting and still maintain kind of what Star Trek is. And
So that would actually end up being Orville season 3, in my opinion. Now, you probably never made it there. You started.
I
did
finished
you watch
all
it?
of Orville, yes.
So you didn't feel that season 3 matured in its humor, and even, I mean, because there really wasn't as much lowbrow in season 3. It became almost a feature film, really, in season 3. There was that big, huge overarching, and it was very serious. As Wham points out, he enjoyed season 3 probably more so than a lot of various random seasons of Star Trek in and of itself. Seth MacFarlane is a production genius and does really well. I think it's highly unlikely, as we are seeing in the chat, I think it's highly unlikely that we see a team up between Tawny Newsome and Seth MacFarlane, as they are pretty much very invested into different studios.
Yes.
Seth MacFarlane being still very much embedded in with Fox and Tawny now with Paramount CBS. So I don't think that we'll see that type of crossover, so to speak. But it would be really interesting because Tawny is just very funny. Those of you who are not very familiar with Tawny's background, her and Eugene Cordero came out of the same training school, I guess, university, if you will. Where was that? Up in New York, something. I can't remember exactly, but they have, and actually I was really surprised. I told you yesterday that I was surprised that Eugene Cordero was not involved. Chicago, thank you, Sherlock Holmes. That Eugene Cordero was not involved with the development of this new project because him and Tawny do a lot of things together.
Sure.
They appear at a lot of the same places together. They do a lot of the same projects together. That is, they're classmates. They're buddies that came out of the same, the same comedy school. So they have done a lot of things. Even at the trade shows, like when you show up at the conventions, they're sitting next to each other. Like they're buddies. They're always around each other. So I do hope that Eugene Cordero somehow gets involved here. But the only way that he could do it is either as a member of the writing staff or as a cameo appearance. That's right, Second City. I couldn't remember Sherlock Holmes. I knew I'd talked about it, and I've seen some of their stuff from Second City. That's right. They both performed with Second City and get a lot of their training there. In Second City in Chicago. So and it's you'd be surprised at some of the names that actually do come out of there. There's a lot of good names that come out of there. But Tawny is very, very talented, and I look forward a great deal to what she puts together on this. This is reminiscent of what's her name? Shonda Rhimes on ABC, who just gets control, right? Like just starts developing show after show after show, like what Seth MacFarlane has done for Fox. And just, this is Tawny's shot to come in and be the next Alex Kurtzman with regards to the Star Trek universe in Paramount.
Oh, I think that's a step too far.
I don't think so. I think she's got the talent and the capability absolutely to pull that off.
Well, I don't think she's ever, I could be wrong, I don't think she's ever produced anything before. She's coming in as an actor and writer for this show, not a director or producer. So I think that there would be, this is something that's going to be good for her in her career and her growth as someone who wants to work in the industry. But I think if there was going to be someone that was going to step in and replace Alex Kurtzman in the Star Trek universe, it would be Riker. He would come in and could be the next, because he's done a lot of directing, a lot of producing.
I don't think he wants
writing.
it.
I don't think he wants it either, which is why Alex is in the role. But I think if there's going to be a next up, that the only person that is really qualified to step in and replace Alex Kurtzman is him.
See, I don't know. This is where I'm not as familiar with the Hollywood production piece of it, but I kind of agree with Nigel in the chat, is that I believe the success or failure of a show starts in the writer's room.
Sure.
And
I don't disagree with that.
So I think that writers today have a lot more influence over the production teams and the directorial aspects of it. I think that Tawny is going to have a great deal of control. As a matter of fact, let's draw a comparison to it. And again, this steps back to Discovery, just because I've been doing a lot of research on the Discovery stuff in preparation for their finale, and that we had a chance to talk with Sonequa and all this stuff. And Doug Jones, brilliant guys. But Sonequa had talked about on her podcast, the Decon Chamber podcast, with Dominic and Connor. You guys should go check that out. Dominic Keating, Connor Trenier. Great podcast. I enjoy that. Have you listened to a lot of the Decon Chamber?
I've seen clips.
Yeah, it's great stuff. They had William Shatner on. It's absolutely amazing. But they had Sonequa on, and Sonequa was telling us how her role in the production of Discovery changed over time.
Sure.
She literally was eventually offered the role of executive producer.
Yep.
But never wrote. Okay. And that was simply because of her role as the captain, as the lead. It put her in that kind of lead management type of position where not only on screen, but off screen, they still looked at her as the captain. They still looked at her as a leader and a representative for them, and the production crew and all that stuff with the executives. So she eventually earned that title, being not a producer, not an actual editor, not a director, and not a writer.
Yes.
I think that a lot of those types of roles in Hollywood are becoming mixed and matched a little bit. I think that Tawny, as a very talented writer, will absolutely be able to go in and direct. Maybe she hasn't done a lot of that before, but I totally see her being good at that, because if she has this creation in her mind, this story that she wants to tell, those are usually the best people to tell that story.
So you're taking what I'm saying out of context, okay?
Okay.
Which is totally never happened on this show before.
All right, very good.
You are saying that Tawny Newsome, because of this show, which hasn't launched, hasn't given a name, hasn't done anything, she's going to be a writer for the show, is going to allow her to take over the entirety of Star Trek, even though she's never written or produced anything before. And as opposed to what I said was, this is not going to put her in that position. This may, if she decides to stay with Star Trek, like Jonathan Frakes. Okay. If she decides to become a major player in directing and writing and being involved in lots of Star Trek shows, yes, she could become that. But going from the voice actor on one show to writing a second show is not put her in the position, is not going to even complete.
Okay.
It's not
I'm not saying
putting her into the Alex Kurtzman's position.
I'm not saying that she'll be there next year.
That was the premise.
Next year.
That was the premise.
But this starts the path. This is, if she wanted to end up in that role, this is exactly what she does.
Sure.
This is exactly what she does. And she's super capable of doing it. Wildstar says that it's wishful thinking on my part. Is it, though? Because she's brilliant. She is the fresh mind and the great writing that you need in this franchise to reach a new group of people. And that's where this conversation started, okay? Star Trek has got to find newer, younger audience members, and she is the gateway to doing that.
Well, I actually think that they need to go back and revisit what they did with Prodigy. And I think that they need to start with something like that. And they can also, the other thing that Star Trek did that did get some new people into the Star Trek was the new, the 2009 Star Trek. The
Kelvin series.
Right? The Kelvin series. So they need to look at that, because that did bring some fresh blood into the Star Trek, but then it died, right? That we're still theoretically getting a fourth movie in that universe, right?
Yeah.
So
We've been getting a fourth movie on that one for the last 10 years. Right?
So can a comedy show reach out to people? Sure, but it's got to be funny outside of it being Star Trek, and I don't think that that's really where they want that show to go. What they need to do is they need to start making a Star Trek show that is going to appeal to a different group of people, whether it be a younger audience or just a different audience. Now, this is going to bring in people that like funny shows, potentially, if it is funny. And I'm not saying I don't think it will be. I think it will be. But I'm saying it has to be funny and not just Star Trek funny. Do you understand the difference?
So how do you propose bringing in a Star Trek audience to the Star Trek universe if it's not Star Trek?
No, it absolutely has to. So my point is if this show is going to succeed at growing the Star Trek fandom, it has to be something that is more than just Star Trek people are interested in, right? So what is this show? It is a Star Trek live action comedy. Well, a live action comedy, there are tens of millions of people that like comedies, right? That comedies get massive numbers in TV all the time. So this has to be funny, and it has to be a Star Trek show, right? It can't be funny to Star Trek fans. It has to just be funny.
Funny for everybody,
right?
Yeah.
So it has to be, if you're coming into the show and you've never seen an episode of Star Trek before, the jokes still have to land if you're trying to use this to grow the audience. And I think that they can do that, and I think that Tawny is someone that can help with that. But what I'm saying is that I think that this is an avenue to try and grow the audience, but I think they also need to revisit what Star Trek is and try and appeal to the people that are Marvel fans or Star Wars fans or action fans, and maybe that's what Section 31 is going to be, an action Star Trek movie, so that it'll appeal to that audience. And if it's a good action movie and it's based in the Star Trek universe, that may get people to want to see more about the Star Trek universe. So what they're doing, I think, is smart, but I think it's just the beginning of what they need to do. And then, of course, as we talked about, they need to reach that lower age group audience with something like a Prodigy type of thing that will appeal to those types of fans. You know, Star Wars is releasing a new show called Skeleton Crew that is a live action show that is going to appeal to the younger audience. It's also going to appeal to Star Wars fans. They need something like that, whether it is a cartoon or a live action that is going to appeal to a different audience of new Star Trek fans. And that's the thing that they haven't really done a really good job of. They could have done with Prodigy, and then they messed up Prodigy. So.
Right. Well, Lower Decks has indeed opened the door to that, says Spectre, and it's opened the door to a team of very talented people who are not Star Trek people. And I think that is a remarkable first step, and what Alex Kurtzman and Terry Matalas have moved towards in trying to get some of that younger, fresher cast and fresher Star Trek family towards hopefully growing the franchise in the future. As we get ready to wrap up here, we got about 10 minutes left. I want to switch over, since this has been a great conversation about growing the Star Trek fandom. Where do you see Terry Matalas working next with his? I mean, he's obviously brilliant, and what he did with Picard was phenomenal. What is his role within Star Trek moving forward? What's his next project, and where do you think his next target demographic goes?
So I can absolutely see him contributing to these shows, like he being the showrunner for a very successful Star Trek show has a couple of options. He can go the Frakes route, right? Mm-hmm. He can be this guy that pops in and directs an episode or two every season that end up being the episodes that everyone likes because he did such a good job with Picard season 3, right? He can step into that role and start to work on multiple shows, or he can try and champion a new show, which would be, hopefully, the Star Trek Legacy show that everyone wants to kind of see happen. My guess is that he's trying to do the latter. He's trying to get Star Trek Legacy. I've seen clips from him talking about how he really likes these characters and wants to do this. So I can see him going that route and saying, I'm willing to put my sweat equity into this to try and make this a reality. And I want to make this a real thing. And I want to drive the ship here because I think I can do a good job at this. And he could do something like that. In the interim, maybe he's going to, maybe he's going to direct an episode of this comedy, or he's going to direct an episode of Starfleet Academy, right? I could see those things happening as well. But I think my perception of what he's trying to do is he is trying to do what the fans want, which is make Star Trek Legacy a reality. And if he does that and can do 2 different shows, right? Although there would be linked because a lot of the characters would be carrying over, and get Star Trek reality, a couple of seasons, he's going to be in a position where he can really kind of write his check in the Star Trek universe if he wants to, which is, I think, what we as fans would like to see. Let's see him do this again, right? Yeah. He did build off of a lot of the nostalgia of The Next Generation in season 3. I don't think he did it poorly. I think he did it really well. But the point is that he was building off of 7 seasons that pre-existed him, right? That pre-existed his entering into the Star Trek universe. And he was able to take that and put it into a story that was very good, right? And made a lot of people very happy. Now let's see him take something that doesn't have that depth, right? 7 of 9 has a history, but doesn't have a history being a Star Trek, a captain, right? So I think that there are these characters that we saw a little bit of in Picard season 3 that we want to see move forward. And if he can take those characters and evolve them into a show that is of the same quality, I think he's really going to have something that people are going to really align with. Now, how does something like that grow the Star Trek universe? That's the problem. It may not, right? That may not grow the Star Trek fandom. It may just give Star Trek fans what they want. And that might be part of what Star Trek is looking at is, does this help grow our fan base? Or is this just giving the fan base that exists things that they want, right? So, I think that this is where it's going, and I think that would be the best thing for him. But I also think that Paramount needs to take a look at what Disney and Lucasfilm are doing and saying, if we want to be at that level, we need to have more pots on the stove. We need to have more pots in the fire. We need to have more things going at the same time because there's an entire timeline of Star Wars projects, and some of them come and go, right? They kind of shift around, but there are so many more projects in that universe than there are in the Star Trek universe. And so if they want to get to that level, they need to pony up into more projects. They need to have more projects that they're greenlighting.
I've seen some concern in the chat. First of all, yes, acknowledge that Terry is working on another project right now, but that's very, very normal. They could absolutely call him and sign a contract for him to come back and work on another show. I mean, he's not married to anything. That's actually what he did so well with Picard season 3 is that, I mean, he's he's worth a lot of money now too. So you get that name working on your project, and that's gonna carry some points. But he can definitely come back, and has said as much that he loves the Star. He's a huge Star Trek fan, so he would love to come back in and do more work with that. Roselius is concerned about just Paramount's current ownership situation as a whole. Do I think that Star Trek is dead? No, by no stretch. As a matter of fact, I would imagine, this is just me, that Skydance's interest in Paramount lies very much at its fandom with Star Trek. I actually see potentially, maybe I'm wishing here, that Skydance wants to do what Marvel and Disney and Lucasfilm are doing with Star Wars, because Star Trek has that capability, and you've got the talent to pull it off.
Well,
you just need the execution.
So everyone listening to this, we're all Star Trek fans, right? I mean, I don't think there's anybody playing Star Trek Fleet Command that isn't. So your audience is Star Trek fans, right? We agree?
Yeah, I guess maybe. Sure.
We think Star Trek is awesome, right? We all are of the opinion that Star Trek is awesome and is the greatest thing that Paramount has going. I got news for you. It's not the biggest thing Paramount has.
Yeah.
It's not close. And so the problem is that while we think that Star Trek is awesome and has this potential and can be absolutely amazing and could be as big as Star Wars, it's not the biggest thing that Paramount has. They're not putting that level of money into it because they have other big things that make them a ton of money.
Oh, Bob the Builder needs to retire. Okay. Listen, Dora. Okay, take your backpack and go home. All right, but I'm sure, jokingly, you're referring to things like the Transformers and
you go if you want to go movies, you can go
Teenage Mutant
Transformers,
Ninja Turtles,
but
and
like shows like CSI and NCIS, they make so much money for CBS and Paramount. So I mean, they are obviously, they want Star Trek to succeed because it is linked with their identity, and Star Trek is going to be Paramount as long as Star Trek is, Paramount and Star Trek are going to be linked, right? They are going to be, what if one succeeds, the other looks good, and if the other succeeds, they can invest, right? So it is something that is absolutely going to have to come together, but I don't think that it is. It's not the biggest thing that they have, and that's okay, right? Star Wars is not the biggest thing Disney has. Disney is the biggest thing Disney has, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, you can invest in something and you can make it popular and you can make it big, but you have to be able to, there is some risk involved with that. And that's the thing I think we've seen is that Paramount is very risk adverse.
Yeah.
They don't like taking those risks.
Well, they don't. They don't have the purse right now to really be able to fail on a lot of those risks.
True.
So it comes down to the risk management and so forth. And I wish that I knew more about that side of the industry to be able to talk to you guys about. But that being said, there are some interesting things happening in the Star Trek universe, and there's a lot more that we can talk about.
Yes.
One of the things I see actually going back and forth in the chat right now is, man, let's get back to 24 episode Star Trek shows. You and I just talked about this last night. I don't think it can happen. It just
I don't think
can't.
it's going to.
The cost, the expense, what we expect as fans, is so expensive to produce. It's like they crossed a barrier, and now we have grown accustomed to or love, the extra graphics, the fight scenes, the battle scenes, the space shots, and all this stuff. And I'm here to tell you that stuff just is not, still to this day, is not cheap to produce.
Well, I think the bigger problem with that is that the streaming industry has changed the way that we view television, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same as when people watch TV shows.
Sure, everything has to be a cinematic production.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that streaming services made shorter series shows and made more money doing shorter series shows.
Okay.
Things like Stranger Things, things like House of Cards. These shows went fewer episodes and made more money. Now, part of what the writer's strike was about and the actor's strike was about was these shorter shows are bad for the industry, right? They are bad.
They are.
Writers can't survive. Actors, I mean,
for sure.
Not the big star actors, but the smaller actors who are trying to break into the industry can't survive on 10 episodes, right? Because the paychecks are much smaller and they're trying to bring in shorter crews. So there were a lot of issues that got resolved in some of that. But I think that the production studios are still like, we think we can still make more money doing shorter seasons than longer ones.
Well, it is unfortunately the kind of at least today's norm, and something that you and I were talking last night. would love to see it go back, but I don't know that we would see the same quality. We wouldn't see the same storytelling, and we certainly wouldn't see the same backing from a lot of the studios because they're scared of that kind of investment.
But I mean, if you go back and look at the Next Generation, right? Not every episode was filled with a bunch of special effects.
Right.
Right. There were episodes that were almost exclusively on a soundstage, right, with very few special effects. You can do things like that, but the problem is that people want, right? They want the special effects in all the episodes. So people are not satisfied with a filler episode that is just on a soundstage or just, a live action.
For sure.
So I think that there is some of that, but I do think that the bigger problem is that the studios have decided that they've found their efficiency point where number of episodes and maximum profits have converged, and they've said it's less than...
It is what it is.
It is what
and,
it is.
there's a lot more that we can talk about with this on the next show. We're out of time for today, but Daverick points out, as much as I love hearing about new Trek, why does it seem like Paramount is not trying to keep their current shows around longer? This is kind of what we talked about earlier with Lower Decks stopping at season 5, Discovery stopping at season 5. Why Strange New Worlds is probably not going to make it to season 7.
But I do think Strange New Worlds will get to like 5 seasons. I do think that's the reality of Strange New Worlds.
Well, again, it comes down to that mathematical break-even point.
Right.
10 episodes and 5 seasons may be the new expected life cycle for a lot of these projects.
Right.
Listen, Discovery was not unsuccessful. They had their growing pains, but it was not unsuccessful. Lower Decks has been crazy successful, and 5 seasons, Strange New Worlds has had a tremendous amount of success, and I think it's going to break all of our hearts when we get that news. So that's just the new norm. This isn't the 90s anymore. Right. And costs have changed, studios have changed, and as you said, the financial projections have shown different results. So we will see what the future holds, and we'll be able to talk more about it in right at about 4 weeks. All right, guys, I have had an absolute blast with you today. This was actually fun. In that this is stuff we don't get to really have discussions about very often inside our podcast. And so this was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. It's been an absolute pleasure having Bubba Joe back on the stage. Absolutely.
To be clear, I will not be ascending Mount DJ every time, but we will be doing podcasts to talk about Star Trek. So we still have things to talk about. In the chat, people were asking about Academy. We're definitely going to come back and talk about Academy.
We've got to get to Academy.
We're going to talk about Prodigy, right? We're going to continue to talk about Lower Decks as it develops. We'll have to figure out a timeline of when we can start to talk about the episodes. Because we really wanted to talk about this episode, but it's fair. It just came out a few days ago.
It just came out a couple days ago. And there's a lot of our audience that doesn't even have the new season of stuff yet. So we'll figure out a timeline where we can talk about the specifics of those episodes. Someone in the chat suggested, well, how about a rewatch? I love the idea of doing a rewatch. That would be great.
And talking about those things. I don't know if you have access to everything or not. So
obviously I do.
I
have everything.
Breaking into my house and taking the DVDs from me.
I still have it until Sundance takes it down. All right.
So
if they do it,
but this has been fun. I had a great time this weekend. Thank you for letting me invite myself out.
Oh, dude, anytime you want to come out, it'd be great. Next time you come out, we'll do some more of this, but we also need to get that front porch stream and just sit on the porch and sip non-alcoholic daiquiris and talk about the cows.
What are DVDs, Spectre? Come on now, you are not that old or not that young.
You're old as dirt, Spectre. You know what a DVD is. All right, guys. Listen, that is our time today. Thank you guys so very much for being here and being part of this new project, this new journey that Bubba and I are embarking on to give you more of the Star Trek universe.
Where's those names again? Let's see here.
What names?
Let's see. We are embarking on Trek to the Retirement Home.
Trek,
we'll run with that one right now.
Yell at Trek, which is kind of something that happened here today. Star Trek and Ensure. All right. Listen, we've got a lot more, and we do have other information to share and guests that have been booked later on and throughout 2025. It should be a fun project, and I look forward to bringing more of this to you guys. Visit our website at TalkingTrekSTFC.com. That is TalkingTrekSTFC.com, where you can find links on over to our other mediums, the YouTube and the Twitch, but most importantly, yes, I am going to say it, the Patreon, because that is what actually keeps the bells on, keeps the lights on, and everything around here, and will help us in our new endeavor as we move towards trying to book cast members and expand the studios and do more travel and do some of this other stuff that we want to do for you guys and bring you more from inside the actual Star Trek universe. You can check out our Patreon at Star Trek or at TalkingTrekSTFC.com, and you can join. We've actually got a couple of new levels there featuring some of our new stuff over on Studio B. And when you sign up today, not only will you get the Fleet Command content, but the Studio B content, but also you're helping indirectly, you're helping keep this new project alive as well. Lots of projects, lots of content, and a lot more insight coming inside the Star Trek universe, and we're excited to be able to bring those to you. It's been a great time, man.
It has.
Thank you very much for making the trip out here. Although next time I will head your direction so you don't have to mount DJ anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're going to try and find top secret location number 2?
Top secret location number 2. I'm going to track it down. All right, guys. Be sure to visit us online. Again, be sure to hang out. We've got more content coming. As a matter of fact, maybe, possibly, even a little bit later on today, we might hang out just a little bit more, but there is football to be watched as well.
There is football to be watched.
There's football to be watched. Thank you, guys.
Packers, who are they playing?
I don't know. I'm more excited
who they're playing.
I'm more excited about watching the Seahawks today, to be honest with you. Jordan Love's out on injury, so
they're playing the Lions.
oh yeah. So I'm not gonna. All right, fine. I'll watch it.
It's important to the division.
It is an important one, but listen, I'll have faith. I've got faith. Go Pack, go.
Can I ban Dr. Juby right there?
No.
Are you sure?
Juby, behave yourself. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Thank you guys for listening to Talking Trek, a registered trademark and recorded in front of a live studio audience for distribution across podcast platforms everywhere. My name is Ultimate DJz. I'm your friendly neighborhood cat person saying meow for now. And he's Bubba.
Goodbye, everyone.
We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you for being a part of our show. You guys have a good one. Meow. Oh, I know. I forgot the legal disclaimer, didn't I? Talking Trek was recorded in front of a live studio audience for distribution across podcast platforms everywhere.
Oh.
I got all messed up. I don't even remember what it is now. Crap. Okay, that's just going to... You want to meow for them? Meow. Okay, that's enough. Goodbye, everybody. And for those of you still hanging out in the Twitch audience, we will, let's see, who do we want to raid to? I know, not enough time. Hey, listen, I found a Bob Ross channel. Do you want to share the Bob Ross channel with them?
Sure.
Let's see, is anybody streaming STFC? We could go into that. Nope, nobody is. All right, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of access to one of our childhood favorites. This is the Bob Ross channel. Bob Ross does not accept raids? What? Well, that's terrible. Bob Ross is... All right, you know what? Moose is playing STFC. We'll go say hi to Moose. All right, yep, I see Moose is over there, so we'll go say hi to Moose. You guys have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll catch up with you guys a little bit more later on. Thank you guys so very much. Pieces, everybody. Love, peace, and hair grease. See you later.